Welcome. My name is Clark Korb. I'm a holistic health practitioner, and today I will be discussing the state of being in flow, what it means to be in flow versus not being in flow, and some ideas on how we can be more conscious or deliberate with allowing flow in all aspects of our life. So first, to discuss general principles of what it means to be in flow, I'd like to start off with a little bit of contrast on what it's like not being in flow, how that might be experienced in our daily lives. For one thing, there can be a stagnation. If traffic isn't flowing, you're stuck in traffic. If you have an electrical device connected to a battery and you disconnect one of the terminals or you pull the battery out of your phone, in electrical circuits we call this being an open circuit. It's not connected to a positive and ground terminal to allow current to flow through the circuit. There's also the idea of swimming upstream. We use this terminology all the time. If you're going against the flow, not going with the flow, it's a much more of an arduous task to swim upstream. It might feel like beating your head against the wall, or that you're not progressing forward with a goal or at the rate with which you would prefer to be progressing toward a goal. You might be feeling frustration, and overall I would put these under the umbrella of a life-limiting experience. By contrast to that, being in flow is really associated with movement at some level, at its base definition. And movement in this regard has a particular number of qualities to it. There's an element of continuity. Movement that's steady, it's not bursty, it has a smooth nature to it, it's not choppy, and it's somewhat regulated. It's nothing that comes out in a burst or a trickle. It's something that is smooth and relatively sustainable. There's also a passive quality to this movement. It's something that feels easy, almost effortless. It requires really an involuntary tipping point to be reached. And within all of this, there's a life-expanding or a nourishing quality to it. Overall, it just feels good being in flow. So to look at a concrete example outside of ourselves, considering water. How does water flow? Water cannot be forced. It can only be allowed to move. It can't be pushed. It can only be redirected or guided. It falls in the direction of least resistance, like via gravity, or even with a pump. Those of you might be thinking, hey, what about a pump? Doesn't that push water? Even with a pump, it can only be directed via centripetal acceleration or moving in response to a vacuum that's created either through heat or a mechanical displacement of volume. Either way, the water can't be pushed. It can only be directed and guided. Water can be shut off, however. It can be turned off by your faucet. Water also must be in a supportive environment in order to flow. It must have a path to move. And again, whether it's going to move with gravity or being moved as directed with the pump, it still needs to have a pathway to move. And if it's too cold, water will freeze and the flow stops. If it's too hot, water will boil and evaporate and there's no water to flow. This is similar to how the flowing of qi is used in exercises like qigong or tai chi, where you are cultivating and harmonizing and moving your own qi, your own life force energy. Your body has to be in a position that's not pinched off, just like water. If it's pinched off in a hose, it won't flow. If your body has kind of mechanical kinks in it, your qi isn't going to flow as well. It has a relaxed quality to the body, and it's tied to the movement of breath. So in this case, either moving qi or moving water does not push back when it counters resistance. And there's a Tai Chi exercise called push hands, where you kind of play with meeting resistance and allowing movement with it as opposed to trying to overpower or force movement. In a philosophical perspective, this is aligned with the Chinese philosophy of Wu Wei, which is effortless action. Now, this is not the same as inaction. This is more action that's taken in harmony with relationship to your environment or people or whatever endeavor you're involved in. With this, you can hold an intention of an outcome that you want to have, but you're not micromanaging the details. I spoke about this a little bit on the concept of letting go, especially referring to control in a video a while back. I'll put a link in the description if you haven't checked that out. So this is a big topic, and in terms of concrete examples, today I'm going to focus on just the physical and flow, and we'll cover some others in a future episode. So physically, when we're blocked to flow, we often can feel lethargy or illness. In fact, in traditional Chinese medical philosophy, all illness has its roots in either qi stagnation or blood stasis. In other words, your blood isn't flowing properly or your qi isn't flowing properly, your life force energy, that is. In these cases, there's also a link to oxidative stress, where there's excessive inflammation or adhesions in the fascia or soft tissue where things stick. They're not moving. They're not moving with ease. So when you are in flow, there's a lack of dis-ease. In other words, you are in ease. Your body feels free. It feels light. Movement comes easily. With this, I would refer to a video on reclaiming your power. There was a wonderful analogy, I think, that applies to life, where I cite a video that Tom Brady put on how to throw a football, where he relates that his job as a quarterback is not inhibiting the transmission of kinetic energy from the ground through his upper body into the ball. It's a wonderful video. Either check out his or the video that I mentioned on reclaiming power. I'm taking that analogy more generally. But in this, it's more about getting out of the way and allowing flow, in this case, allowing energy to flow through your body. So how can you encourage more flow in your life, in your body, physically? As a body worker, one of my modalities that I was trained in is craniosacral therapy. And the originator of that is Dr. John Upledger, who is a doctor of osteopathy, who is credited with bringing craniosacral therapy into the mainstream of body workers outside of merely osteopathic practice. And he refers to this inner physician, and this is certainly applicable when you're working as a therapist, but it's something that you can apply for yourself. And I'm going to generalize this as a way of practicing mindfulness, a way of listening to what your body really wants and needs to be supported. And one of my first exposures to this thought was before I went into holistic health. I was working as an electrical engineer. And I had this experience where I was a new homeowner and wanted to clean up the backyard a little bit and remove this dilapidated jungle gym swing set kind of structure that was made out of wood and had a couple of concrete settings that it was fastened to. And I thought, gee, I'll go to Home Depot and rent a jackhammer and break out these concrete settings. Well, as it turns out, by the day after I did that, I didn't notice any pain in the midst of doing the work, but the day after I noticed I had a pretty significant limitation in range of motion in one of my elbows. I couldn't extend it much beyond maybe 90 degrees or so. And it persisted for a few days. I ended up going to see a general practitioner, a doctor. He didn't have any idea what would cause it to be stuck. He sent me to an orthopedic as a referral, and there wasn't anything indicated as a requiring surgical or even medical approach to it. They basically said, well, we'll try physical therapy and see if that helps. So it was one of these guesses for them. And I just so happened to pick a physical therapist that clearly was trained in something like this craniosacral therapy that I referred to. I was amazed at the process in that she really didn't have me do a ton of exercises. Most of the work was done with, as she called it, listening to my body. She said it knew how it was injured and it would know how to be worked with or what support it would need to be opened up. And that was fascinating. At the time, I didn't think, gosh, that sounds like a cool thing. I want to do this kind of work. I thought it was a cool thing for sure. And looking back, it definitely is very much in line with how I work in my practice. And so how can we apply this to ourselves? If in general we look at the idea of what does my body really want or really need right now, this is practicing mindfulness. And like anything, this mindfulness takes a little bit of practice observing cause and effect to see if we get it right. In other words, to sort of evaluate the benefit versus cost of what we're deciding to do. In some cases, you can mentally play this out for yourself, simulate it a little bit, like, okay, do I really want to go to a movie right now? Will that move me in the direction of what I want to accomplish tonight, or will that give me the right kind of joy versus cost benefit if I have to get up early tomorrow? Something like that. So trial and error over time will give us feedback for this. So ultimately, to really accurately assess what does my body need or want right now takes a bit of mindfulness. And if we're solely reacting to urges like, ooh, I really want something sugary, that may or may not be beneficial to us, or at least to do with a great deal of frequency. Like anything else, with practice, we become better at really discerning or even going through the mental simulation of benefit versus cost of whatever we are considering, whether it provides us with something that is supportive and nutritive and helpful and restful and generative of flow or not. And again, trial and error and time will only be the best teachers for that sort of thing. So some examples of this might be, do I need rest? Do I need movement or exercise? If so, what kind of movement? Do I need cardiovascular movement? Do I need to just go for a walk? Do I need to do some resistance training? Maybe a few push-ups or hit the gym? Do I need to focus instead on something more mobility-oriented or stretching? Or maybe do I need to do something that's more meditative and integrated where I have mind-body emotional connection that I'm tending to? Do I need to do something to just have some fun? Maybe I've been working too much. Do I need to hydrate? Do I need to eat something? And if so, what do I need to eat? And this is a particular example of where the craving, or if there's a chemical addiction, can be tough to suss out over time. But I believe with mindfulness and really consciously addressing, is this something that will really serve me or not, can very much come into play. Beyond that, this idea of conscious eating, where you're really being mindful or present to what you're eating. An important aspect here that can be a little challenging is if there's a tendency to overeating or a food addiction or a chemical addiction, and it really requires some practice to be mindful or present to what you're eating versus responding to a craving or a reactive craving. So with this, as you chew slowly, noticing the full taste and texture of your food, allowing the enzymes in your saliva to assist in the digestive process, over time, if you're really checking in with, after one bite, 2 bites, how is this feeling? How is my body taking this on? You'll learn to respond more from that mindfulness if this is really supporting your body or not. Rather, eating till you're full and not satiated, till you're satisfied, not satiated. All of this really requires just the exercise of noticing how you feel, taking your time with this. And your ability to discern your true needs versus your reactive cravings, not just with food, but with all of these other elements. Beyond conscious eating, this really applies to conscious everything, conscious activity. You'll notice more how you feel if you ask that question to check in with yourself. How did this nap feel? Did that really serve me, or did it kind of take me off track? How did this exercise feel? How did this type of exercise feel? How did this meal feel? Do I feel like my push for extra productivity actually worked against myself? Did I feel like that little break I took or the day off that I went to the beach, that ultimately really served me? And as you practice these different decisions and you really tune into how you feel, how supported you feel, not just in the moment, but in a more sustainable idea of, is this helping me be more in flow, be more in joy, be in a more expansive and productive state, then you'll be able to develop that discernment of your true needs versus a reactive craving. And this improves, like anything, over practice. What about this resonates with you? Let me know in the comments below. If you know of anyone who may benefit from what I've shared here, please forward this video to them. And if you found some value in what I've discussed today, I would certainly appreciate your giving this video a like and clicking on the subscribe button with notifications set to all in order to avoid missing future posts. These little actions take only moments to do, they cost nothing, yet they really help support the growth of the channel. Thank you for tuning in.